I'm Pastor Mark Raffel. One thing I have learned to do to keep my mind healthy is that when I pray, I answer the first question recorded in the Bible. Where are you? That question is found in Genesis 3:9. God asked this question of Adam after Adam and Eve sinned. But whether I am confessing sin or not, in prayer, I imagine God asking me this question about my mental state. Where are you? And I try to answer God as honestly and openly as I can. I'm mad at you. I'm frustrated. I'm feeling prideful. I'm feeling vindictive. I'm jealous. I'm envious. I'm afraid. I'm scared. I'm feeling lazy. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Whatever I'm feeling at that time, I express it. And you know what? Each time I answer God with an honest and open statement about where I am mentally, I feel a weight lifted. Nothing's been solved yet, but I have started the process of letting it go by candidly sharing with God. And today, I want to encourage you to try answering this question in your prayer life. Where are you? Answer that and see God work.
The information shared in this show is for the sole purpose of being informative, should not be considered complete, and does not cover all issues related to mental health. This information should not replace consultations with your doctor, other qualified mental health providers, and/or specialists. If you believe you or another individual is suffering from a mental health crisis or other medical emergencies, contact your doctor immediately, seek medical attention immediately in an emergency room, or emergency mental health services. Hey there, Excuseless family. We are so excited that you are joining us in this very safe and relaxing space as we discuss being excuseless about our mental health. Listen, before we get started, as you heard Pastor Snell say earlier, this is a space that is not meant to diagnose, but to inform and to allow you to gain information so that you can make the proper choices about your mental health. We are encouraging you to find or identify a physician or mental health professional that can guide you through your mental health experience or crisis if you're experiencing one. So please make sure that you identify those people. Today we are talking about an incredible subject that may seem complicated, and but we are excited to have with us in the studio Dr. Donna Scott. She is an author, she is a speaker, you say mostly retired, right?
Mostly retired.
Mostly retired psychiatrist that is going to guide us through the conversation about grief. So, yes. Dr. Scott, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have you here. Grief is complicated. Is that a fair thing to say?
I think it's complicated because people don't expect that it's going to affect them the way it does. Mm-hmm. They think, oh, well, you know, yeah, it's life.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes things in life are hard.
Absolutely.
And grief can be very difficult.
It can be, and very rarely do you meet a person that has not experienced some kind of grief. I know that people experience it differently, but I do want to first talk about maybe the grief through a loss, a death. When a person experiences the loss of a loved one through death, how important is that grieving process?
It is extremely important.
Wow, yeah.
Because it's going to affect you adversely if you don't deal with it. I think because we think it's something natural, we think, I can do this, it's okay. But it's also natural to feel hurt and anger and all kinds of emotion because something has happened to you that doesn't feel good, and if it doesn't feel good, there's a reason.
So I know that even through my own personal experience through the loss of a loved one, that sometimes we think it may be easier to just kind of delay the grieving process. But maybe before we start talking about that, I know there are different steps to grief. I hear maybe a lot of healthcare professionals talk about the different steps of grief. In your experience, what are some of those steps like? Or what do you like seeing your patients or the people that you counsel? What are some things that you advise them on the different steps of grief?
Well, they talk about steps, but what I really like to say to people is that you get to do it your own way.
Ooh, yeah.
It's not a step 1, 2, 3. You don't have to do it that way. And most of us don't. Most of us, when we experience grief, because we are who we are, we experience it differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there's something very right with that. The important thing is we need to allow ourselves to experience the grief. That is just so important. And I tell people, I don't want you to stay there, but I want you to visit it every now and again.
Wow.
So as you visit it, you can deal with it. And then at other times when it may not be appropriate, you kind of pull that in. You go to work.
Yeah.
Now you may have to cry all the way to work.
Yeah.
But then you get to work, you pull yourself together, and maybe you cry all the way back. Or you wait to a time where you can go into your closet and cry. But you need to give yourself an opportunity to have the feelings. God gives us feelings for a reason. And I like to tell people that we were not created to have to experience grief.
So you said so many powerful things that I want to kind of touch on. I want to go back and touch on. The first thing you said is that you encourage people to go and visit grief often. So you're kind of almost saying, like, there's never a moment where, oh, we've grieved, we did the grieving process and we stopped. No. So tell me a little bit more about that, because that even, for a person like me, I'll be very honest, I am a person that's just like, we're going to put it over here because it's done.
Yes. Especially we're talking about the grief of losing a person that we love. I tell people, grief is not like having a pair of shoes that you're finished with. You're finished with them, you throw them in the trash, you get another pair. People are not like that. You can't just let them go and it's okay. So you should have some feelings about that. If you're not having those experiences, then you're not being true to yourself. But what I don't want you to do is to stay there. I don't want you to become a grieving person. I want you to grieve, and then I want you to live life.
Yeah.
And then maybe sometimes you need to get back there and grieve again, especially in the beginning. People always want to say, I lost it. Well, what did you do? You cried? crying is not losing it. Crying is a normal response to a terrible situation.
Wow.
And losing someone you love is a terrible situation.
Yeah.
So it's okay to feel bad and cry.
Yeah.
And I even want you to do that in front of the children, like people who have lost spouses and they have children. You know, you want to be strong in front of the children. Yeah, but you want them to know that it hurts and it's okay to express that.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's okay to show some of it. Now you may not want to break down and lay all of that on a child, but you want a child to know that it's okay to feel terrible, because probably they feel terrible too.
Yeah, that is so it's funny because I know a lot of times as adults, we're afraid that if our kids see us cry about this or they see us kind of messed up over it, that means that I think maybe we lose our superhero-ness to our children, or that they feel like, oh, well, you know, mommy can't handle this, or daddy can't handle this, or auntie can't handle this, and that means that it's really, really bad. But I love that you said that it's important for them to see it so that they know it's okay.
Yes.
And that maybe, you know, we raise healthier people with their feelings. Is that?
Yeah, we need to be true to our feelings. And when something feels awful, you should feel, it's okay to feel that awfulness.
Yeah.
And it helps us come up with more appropriate ways of coping. I talk to a lot of people, and they think because they feel bad, there's something wrong. No, that was awful what happened. And you should feel awful because of that. And no, you don't need medication because you feel awful. Because if you didn't feel awful, that's a problem.
Wow, yeah, yeah.
That's a problem.
So that takes us into a really great part of the conversation, is when you have a person that purposely delays the grieving process. So I want to talk about maybe two types of people.
Okay.
The first person is a person that, like, the death happens, and in order for them to get through the planning of the funeral, the planning of everything else, they kind of delay, you know, they put it on a shelf, right? They're just like, I can't deal with that right now because I have to make sure that, you know, the bills are paid for the funeral and everything else, and I've called everybody that I need to call, and different things of that nature. When does that become a problem? When that person is just like, I can't deal with this right now because I have to complete this task?
I think it's probably always a problem through every part of the grieving process, because initially you have this trauma. Now maybe you can't be true to those feelings all the time, but I tell people, go into your closet. Okay, yeah, I've got to plan this, but maybe you need to go someplace where you can feel the emotions. Time it if you have to. That's okay. But give yourself an opportunity to be true to the feelings that you're really having. And then you pull yourself together, and then you go to work.
Right.
Or you take care of the kids, or you make the planning. And you do that as often as you need to in order to be okay. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself looking at inappropriate ways to cope with the pain. And people do that all the time. I think that's why we're a drug society, because the commercials would have you think that if you feel bad, if you just took this medicine, then the butterflies will come, and then you'll feel wonderful, and then the bright lights. That's not life, that's not reality, and you need to know how to cope, because life does go on.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you say that, because again, a lot of people probably like me are one of those, types of people. It's just like, let me get through this, and then when I get to the end, then I will. And oftentimes that ending never comes.
Never happens.
It never happens. Do you think that there's a part of us that we're afraid of the feeling?
Well, I think none of us want to feel badly. We prefer to be happy. But again, it's not the reality of life. We can be content, but we need to own up to how we feel. I tell people God gave us feelings for a reason. Our feelings are what makes us human, which gives us compassion for other people, help us to understand what's going on with them, what's going on with us. So we really need to acknowledge the feelings. And again, I don't want you to stay there.
Right.
And some people find it easier to think, because people are nice to you when you're grieving.
Yes, that's true.
They're helpful.
They bring food and all that. Yeah, exactly.
And so some people like that, and maybe even on a subconscious level, they stay in the grieving point because there's someplace that they get all the help.
Yeah.
They feel cared for. And I don't want you to do that. That's not healthy either. I want you to visit it. I want you to deal with the feelings and then be able to learn something from the experience. Sounds funny, doesn't it?
It does, because you were just like, oh, what would I learn from this grieving process? Because sometimes it can feel so taxing, to learn from it.
And this terrible thing.
Yeah.
Because, young people die.
Yes.
People die who shouldn't die, or we're not ready for them to die. So you don't want to think that that's a learning experience, and yet it is.
Yeah.
It should be. And if it's not, then maybe there's something that you're missing, something that's going to be helpful down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting thing that I've always noticed, because I watch different people grieve, and even in my own process when my mother died, and the different people that were close to her grieved in different ways.
That's right.
And it took me a while to learn that everybody isn't going to grieve the same way.
No.
How do you, if you have two people in a household, for instance, and both people are grieving in a way that maybe not recognizable to the other person, how do we navigate that as loved ones? Like if I'm not necessarily the crier, but someone else is, how do we navigate that when we're trying to navigate grief together?
Just like in all relationships, you have to learn to allow the person to be themselves. And that means it's going to be different. So what you can do is validate their feelings and allow them to do it their way, just like you're going to do it your way. Unless something strange comes up.
Yeah.
Okay. Being suicidal, wanting to get in the casket is not okay. Initially, you have these strong emotions, but it's never okay to want to die because that person died. If you start noticing things that are just really abnormal, then that person really needs to be evaluated because that's serious. And that is not grieving, that is something else. And someone needs to figure out what that something else is.
Right, right. And that is when we begin to seek out those healthcare professionals that can help that person maybe navigate why they're feeling those feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that does not mean you're crazy.
Right.
Okay, you need to say that. Does not mean that you're crazy, because you need someone else to talk to, someone else to help you through something. Because we're not in this alone. We're having these feelings. Those feelings need to be dealt with in a safe way. Can I mention the things that are not safe?
Yes, please, absolutely.
The three things I think about that are unsafe that people use in order to deal with their pain. Alcohol and drugs. Okay, I may be talking to a Christian group. Alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
Okay, those are inappropriate ways of dealing with feelings. There are better ways. Alcohol and drugs work over a short period of time. Yeah, you drink, you don't think about it. Use drugs, you don't think about it. But it brings with it so much other stuff that you really don't want to use that as a way of dealing with your pain. Inappropriate sex. Again, you feel good in the meat initially.
Right.
But it's gonna bring those relationship issues that you really don't want to deal with. That's a third that's not coming to mind right now.
That's okay. We'll wrap back around. But those two are huge, because sometimes, like you said, those are temporary ways to feel good. And does it often push away that natural process that we're going through? Does it delay the process?
Yeah, because you're feeling good, so you don't have to deal with it. And I have people tell me all the time, I don't feel good. I treat people who are incarcerated, and they're not using drugs. They don't have a lot of things to occupy their time, their mind. So then they're thinking about all this stuff, and they're having all these feelings. Yeah, because you're not drugged up. And because you're not drugged up, you're doing things that you should have done long time ago.
Oh, so that right there is huge. So you're essentially saying that you can delay it all you want.
Yeah.
It's gonna ultimately, you're still gonna have to deal with everything that would have happened if you let it happen naturally.
Yes.
Wow.
So it's going to come back. And dealing with it allows you to get over it.
Yeah.
It gets it off you. It doesn't mean you're forgetting that person. A lot of people think if I deal with it, then I'm not being true to that person anymore. That's not true. They would not want you to stay in the black hole. They would want you to go on and have a normal, productive life.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I were talking earlier, and you were talking about the importance of Christians knowing how to grieve, or that Christian grief process, and how we deal with it as Christians. What are some things that you noticed that maybe Christians don't realize are necessary during their grieving process?
I think Christians like to think that they should be happy all the time. What do we say? God is good.
Yes, all the time. All the time.
All
Yes.
the time, God is good. Okay, so I should be happy. No, that is not reality. You should have feelings. An experience I had once when my father died, and during the service, I cried. And then someone says, well, I thought she was a Christian.
Oh
Yes,
my.
I'm
Yes.
a Christian, and I don't like it that my daddy is gone.
Yeah.
And I'm grown, and I'm self-supporting, and I still don't like it that my daddy's died.
Yeah.
And so Christians have this false idea of what they should feel or what they should portray. Again, God gave us feelings for a reason. And so it's okay to feel terrible, to not want this awful thing to happen, to cry sometimes. The thing about the Christian is, after they deal with the feelings, they get back up.
Yeah.
But you don't have to immediately go to God is good, so I feel okay. I can trust him, so I feel okay. Yeah, those things are true. They are true. But you don't have to go straight there. You can acknowledge the feelings, deal with the feelings, talk to God about the feelings, be mad at him because this happened.
Yes.
So he's a big boy. He can handle it.
Yeah, I love it.
He really can handle
it.
So really, it's okay to have the feelings, talk with him about it, talk with yourself about the feelings, and get to a different place.
Mm-hmm. I want to kind of rest in that for a second, because I have been in a space where you lose someone, or even you get some not so great news, and there is almost that indictment from other Christians that are just like, well, why are you upset about that thing, And you're just like, I understand that there is this promise, right? And we know that we are believers in the second coming of Christ, and we believe that, in that great day, all of our loved ones will be raised up that fell asleep. But there is that moment where you're just like, but my mom isn't here, or my dad isn't here, and we cannot have that active conversation with them at that moment. And you do have those people that are just like, well, don't be sad, rejoice that they're no longer in pain.
They don't have to suffer anymore.
Oh yes.
And people will tell you the dumbest things. They're trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
But it's dumb.
Yeah.
My father had Alzheimer's. He didn't know who I was. He knew I was important, but he didn't know who I was. And I still felt sad when he died.
Yeah.
Because he's my dad.
Yeah.
And I won't have him anymore. And that's okay. It's absolutely okay.
Listen, Dr. Scott, you have so much incredible information. I know you were an author. You have written, you said 4 books. You have some things coming up. Just tell our audience where they can find you, how they can find your books, your information, especially as they navigate their own mental health processes. Where can they find you?
They can find me at managingyourgrief.com. managingyourgrief.com. I have 2 books that are devotionals.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes it's helpful to have something to read every day, and it kind of takes you through the steps, the things that you may think about and wonder about. Those are the devotionals. And then, churches really should have a grief ministry.
Absolutely, yes.
And so the 2 books deal with a seminar dealing with grief. And so there's one book that's for the leader of the group, and then the other book is for the participants.
Oh, wow.
And it helps them, again, to go through a process and not do it alone. You really don't have to do this alone.
I love that.
managingyourgrief.com.
Yes, that is where we find Dr. Scott. So that is a great place to start. Whether you are an individual, whether you are a church group, that is a place that you can go and find those resources as you begin to manage your own process. Wow, this conversation is just too much to try to shove into one day. We are talking about the grief of loss. Join us tomorrow as we begin to talk about grieving those that may still be around and other issues that you didn't realize needed to be grieved. In the meantime, continue to stay with us as we become excuseless, and we will see you for our part 2 conversation of how to deal with grief.
What's good, everybody? The excuseless revolution is underway, and lives are being radically changed. There are some of you that have the hard copy of the book. There's some that have the ebook. But I want you to know we've heard the call, and the audiobook is now available on Audible. There are some of us that need to see the word, some of us need to hear it, but however you receive it, God be praised. I want to encourage you to go on to Audible, get your version, and continue the journey of becoming excuseless. Hello, I'm Pastor Deblier Snell, Speaker Director for the Breath of Life television ministry. This ministry was established to take the gospel of Jesus Christ throughout North America and across the globe. My goal is to make Jesus Christ known through the preaching of the word. I need you to know that we need your financial partnership in order to make sure that the gospel can go into every hill, into every rural county, and into every inner city. And we can only take the gospel as far as the gifts that you lend to us. We thank you for your financial partnership in the past, and I'm asking that you would continue to be a financial partner with this ministry going forward. Here are some ways you can give. You can give online at our website at www.breathoflife.tv. You can send your gift by mail to Breath of Life, P.O. Box 5960, Huntsville, Alabama 35814. You can call the office at 256-929-6460, or you can text the phrase "Give to BOLTV" to 188-364-GIVE, or the easiest thing is through Cash App at $Breath of Life TV. I want you to know that every dime that you give goes right back into the ministry so that we can enlarge our reach and make sure that the entire world knows that Jesus saves and that Jesus Christ is coming again. God bless you, and we thank you for your generosity to the Breath of Life ministry.